UFC White House is booked for the 4th of July 2026, the 250th anniversary of the USA. In this video, I'm putting together what Dana White might do for what he calls the best event in UFC history.
I smoke marijuana.
First, some guidelines on how the card is put together. These aren't so much hard predictions as much as very feasible fights, accounting for what we know now. From what we're told, the card will be decided come next February. Number 1. UFC 300 Plus. UFC 300 was the last mega card the company made, and that was 14 fights with talent all the way through. For this one, I've made it 15 fights, 5 early prelims, 5 prelims, and 5 for the main card, with accurate talent levels for all 3. Number 2. The card's got to focus on American fighters. Most of the world is represented on it anyway, but it is the 4th of July card. The last thing before we begin are the notable exclusions. These are great fighters who I think will either get a separate event of their own or are a bad fit for the card. If you think any of them will be there, sound off in the replies and I'll get back to you. So, early prelims. The opening fight is Terence McKinney vs Drew Dober 2. This thing will last 30 seconds. McKinney, obviously a stoppage machine, and his only recent loss being Ribovic's is a very respectable one. Dober's another stoppage machine, but he's on a slide. He's booked against Kyle Prepolek in Canada in October, and if Prepolek wins that, then scratch this and get McKinney someone else. That said, I see Dober handling Prepolek quick and setting up this one. And remember, Dober beat McKinney in the first one. My prediction for this fight, McKinney by knockout. Number 2, Chase Hooper and Claudio Puelles. Hooper, a popular name in MMA,
Too much time grooming this camp.
and Puelles used to have a degree of hype behind him. Some of you might think that this is too low competition for Hooper, but I really don't think it is. He didn't take Hernandez seriously, and both their best win is arguably Jordan Levitt. If Hooper's really going to be somebody in the company, let him beat another black belt and get back on track. And if Puelles beats Hooper, then he gets himself back on track in a much bigger way. My prediction for this one, Hooper by submission. Number 3 is a good one, and involves a prediction. I made this fight before Gable had his LFA fight, which was a guaranteed win, but I predict that by next July, Gable Stevenson will be in the UFC heavyweight division and taking on Janata Denise. If you haven't heard of him, Gable Stevenson is an American wrestler and Olympic gold medalist who's coached in MMA by John Jones. Janata Denise, only a year ago, was a big prospect in the division that needs prospects. He got his fight against Marcin Tybura and he lost, and while there's no shame in that, then he went to a decision against Alvin Guzzi Hines, and even with Guzzi on short notice, he just failed to impose himself. My prediction for this fight, Gable's going to be ready for it, win by knockout. Number 4. Rose Namajunas versus the winner of Karine Silva and Macy Barber. Rose is probably my favourite female fighter of all time. She's got unbelievable moments like the head kick to win the belt, but she was also part of the worst UFC fight I've ever watched. Basically, she's had some great moments, she's had some howlers, and I think she's earned a place on the White House card across her career. Barber vs Silva is booked for December in Vegas. This one could go either way. Barber's a very good talent, Silva comes from a great gym, it's going to a decision in December, and I might give a slight edge to Barber. My prediction for this one, Namajunas by decision. And to round out the early prelims, fight number 5, Colby Covington versus Carlos Leal. We know Colby. He's done. But he's also got the Constitution tattooed on his chest. Let the man fight at the White House. Even when Colby was losing a fight these days, he still makes a good effort. He was getting pieced against Buckley and he still went for spinning back kicks, and some of them were landing. My view is he's a good company man with very few fights left. Let him go out at the White House. Carlos Leal was a name with some wind behind him going into his last fight against Muslim Salikov. Leal didn't look bad until he got knocked out. I just think he wasn't giving the 41-year-old Salikov any respect and he got caught. Apart from that, he's been fine. KO against Morono, robbed against Fakhretdinov. Let him go against Colby and see what he can do. My prediction, Leal by decision and Colby retires. On to the prelims. The first fight on the prelims is Raul Rosas Jr. versus Raoni Barcelos. Rosas is famous A, for making noises, but B, for being the youngest fighter ever signed to the UFC. His showings in the organisation have largely been good. He's had his one early loss to Christian Rodriguez, and he's looked really good since then. I think he learned from it. He's a good fighter, can grapple, he's hugely popular, and I think he deserves a shot against a serious opponent. And a serious opponent is what Raoni Barcelos is. Barcelos is largely known for derailing Peyton Talbot, which was an unreal upset he got a unanimous decision for. Before that, his results were a mixed bag: knocked out by Umar, unanimous loss to Kyler Phillips. But the Peyton Talbot win was real, and it showed he's really sharp with good defense. I don't view Barcelos as a prospect gatekeeper, but this matchup is a sweet match. My prediction for this fight: Rosas shows he's serious and wins a unanimous decision. The second prelim. The winner of Waldo Cortez Acosta and Dante D'Elia versus Derek Lewis. D'Elia and Cortez Acosta is booked in the Apex, and it got demoted from main event when I really don't think it should have. D'Elia really surprised me by beating Tybura recently. It was his debut, he trains with Tom Aspinall, and from here on out I'm really keeping my eye on him. Waldo was on a good streak until just recently. I think he's a little bit boring, but he was winning, so I mean, what do you do except give him decent competition? Between the two of them, I was so surprised by D'Elia's debut. I think D'Elia's going to beat him. And then, Derek Lewis, the man precedes himself. He's one of the biggest fan favourites ever, with a knockout rate of over 80%. In his last outing, he starched Taliesin Teixeira as an underdog, and he's beaten some of the absolute best. But he's also shown that he can lose by any method to any level of competition in the past. Between the three of them, until further notice at least, Derek Lewis is the best of the three. My prediction: Lewis by KO. Number 3, Bo Nickel and Chris Curtis. Bo Nickel's stock is at the lowest it's ever been, and I like Bo Nickel. Was he a bit early in calling out Khamzat? Yes. Were we a bit big for our boots? Yes. But Bo is a mega talented, uber good wrestler. He can sub and he can knock people out. The problem has been the level of competition that he can win against. The Paul Craig fight was meant to be that test for him, but there were very few punches thrown and Bo was showboating even though he had no right to be. And then after that, the DeRitter fight was way too high a step up in competition. I want Bo to do well, so it's all about giving him the right fights to get him where you want him to be one day. Chris Curtis is the right opponent for him. Curtis is sort of medium at everything, pretty much a win-lose guy. He has surprisingly good wins over good competition like Buckley and Brendan Allen. Whether he'd beat them today is besides the point. If he wins this fight convincingly, it's good for him, and he's the guy who fully kicked Bo Nickel out of the conversation. My prediction: Bo by submission. Bo is back. Fight number 7 is another one I really like. Michael Venom Page against Jacoby Smith. I'm not sure what's ahead in the road for Michael Page. He's 38 and in a brutal division. And although I fancy him against a number of the names in the top 10, is that what he wants at this stage? I think he'd accept a fight at the White House. It's incredibly prestigious, and it's against a dangerous opponent, but one he probably thinks that he beats pretty handily. Jacoby Smith being here means he would have to continue fighting how he's fighting for a whole nother year. He's done really well in the UFC so far, 2 fights, 2 knockouts, and some people are projecting him to really be someone. Part of making this card is projecting who will be good in 10 months' time, and there's a very good chance Jacoby Smith will be a new face amongst that group next July. My prediction for the fight: MVP will frustrate and avoid Kobe, maybe getting caught once or twice, and win a decision, but a good showing from Jacoby Smith. And for the last fight before the main card, Money Moicano vs BSD 2. Inside Renato Moicano, there's an extremely good fighter. It really all begins when he beats Jalen Turner after Turner should have knocked him out, and then he put out Saint-Denis in Paris. He's part of one of the craziest events in UFC history when he took on Makhachev on 1 day's notice, and even scored a knockdown against him. Obviously he got submitted immediately, but Moicano was just such a fun fighter when he's fighting well. His last outing against Dariush was hard to explain, but forget that. Money Moicano at the White House. BSD is resurrecting his career as we speak. He was considered the biggest fraud after his losses, and in reality he was being fed to Ruffy to build up Ruffy's name for a title shot. I think this fight's got built-in great background. Will Moicano display his talent, or is Saint-Denis getting revenge? My prediction for this fight: I hate to say it, Saint-Denis knocks out Moicano. And finally, for 5 big fights, the UFC White House main card. Opening the main card is the final sequel fight of the night. Ian Gary versus Carlos Prates, number 2. Ian Gary could win the welterweight belt before his career is over. I know he lost, and I know he gets a hard time for how he talks about the fight, but he was inches away from submitting Shavkat Rakhmonov at UFC 310. Obviously, these two have fought before, so Gary's naturally in with a shout to win this one. The only risk is, he handily won the first 4 rounds against Prates in that fight. In that 5th round, he was fighting for his life, and if Prates fought a little bit smarter, he would have knocked Gary out cold. Prates is a highlight reel. The only question mark I see for him is, what the hell was he doing in those first 4 rounds of his main event against Gary? Knockout power, awkward stance. He's difficult for any opponent, and crowds love him. I think this fight's a perfect opener. My prediction, with only 3 rounds, Ian Gary will win by decision. Fight number 4 is our first fight for a belt. Kayla Harrison, the only current American UFC champion, taking on the female greatest of all time, Amanda Nunes. There's been chatter about this matchup since Harrison beat Pena in June, with Nunes entering the octagon for a face-off. So while the fight is essentially set, Nunes does need to do 6 months of drug testing, and that time frame lines up perfectly with the White House card. Harrison is the number 1 female fighter in the world right now. The crazy thing to say about someone who's only had 3 fights in the UFC is, if not Amanda Nunes next, who else? What's important to remember about Amanda Nunes is she only lost 2 fights in her 10 years in the UFC. The important one is Juliana Pena in 2021. Though she did beat Pena in a rematch, you have to look at 2 things. A, is age going to be a factor if she comes back? But B, you have to take a look at the way in which she lost to Pena. Pena was able to beat Nunes by submission. Harrison submitted Pena 3 months ago. If Amanda comes back and beats Kayla Harrison in style, I mean, what's left to say? But if Harrison wins, sort of in the same vein, what's left to say? Who do you give her next? My prediction, Kayla Harrison by decision or submission. And the last fight before the co-mains, Max Holloway versus Paddy Pimblett. It doesn't matter how you have to schedule Arman, Gaethje, Hooker, the rest of them, this is the fight to make it lightweight, and do it for the BMF belt. Even a passing fan knows who Max is. Max has been great for years. I didn't like that when he fought Topuria, the BMF belt wasn't on the line, so I'm always keen to see him defend it again. Max is great, he's American, he'll only be 34 by next July. He should be there. This would easily be the biggest task of Paddy's career so far. Paddy's much better than a lot of people give him credit for. He easily beat Chandler, and the thing I've been liking about Paddy is since the dodgy Flash Gordon fight, he's sort of been winning fights any way he wants to. Anyway, Max, Paddy, USA, England. I think it's a good one. My prediction for the BMF belt, Paddy Pimblett by submission. The co-main event of the White House card, at long last, is Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. When I started making this video, McGregor fighting again was a long shot, and now it's almost a certainty that he's going to be there. I have no idea how he's going to look when he comes back, but everyone's going to be watching. McGregor looks like he's taking his training seriously. He's bigger and he's slower than he was, but to be training regularly almost a full year out from the event is a very good sign. I think McGregor understands that the way he's going to be remembered in the UFC sort of depends on whether or not he can get one more win before he calls it a day. Mike Chandler is what he is, a likeable and durable fighter who can make some dense decisions and sometimes get caught up in the showmanship of prize fighting. Although he rarely wins, that means very little to me. He's only ever fighting the top guys. I think Chandler's a good fighter and a great company man. This fight was booked 2 years ago, and why not do it now? And I know McGregor's out of his prime, but he's the biggest star in the history of the sport. I think to go out with a win at the White House, that's the absolute best way that this story can end. My prediction, I hope I'm wrong, Michael Chandler by knockout.
God gave me style, God gave me grace. God gave me style, God gave me grace. God put a smile on my face. God made me shine like the sun. God made me shine like the sun. Sometimes I feel like I'm the one. Sometimes I feel like it ain't my fault. I just reach for style. I'm hot, I breaks it down. It ain't my fault. You can't break it down the way I break it down. Listen, you can call me what you want, black and ugly, but you can't convince me the Lord don't love me. When my CDs drop, they sell the best. You call it love, why can't it just be I'm blessed?
This is the only fight I want to see. Jon Jones, the greatest of all time, against Tom Aspinall. I'm going to start with Tom. The first thing is, the UFC have to give Tom whatever he wants. Absolutely whatever he wants. Blank check, teammates on the undercard. He's an A+ talent on his way to being the greatest heavyweight of all time. And this fight was agreed before Jon decided to retire. If he accepts this, after being run around and put on hold, pay him whatever it costs. I would be a huge Tom guy if I wasn't Jon Jones' strongest soldier. I don't give Cyril Gane a chance of beating Tom Aspinall in Saudi Arabia. I'm going to put 100 on Tom. He's in a league of his own, and no active fighter gets close. No active fighter except Jon Jones. Dana's been really vocal recently about his apprehension of letting Jones headline the card. He's citing that, he's pulled out in the past, that he's not reliable. I don't think any of that matters anymore. You have the biggest event in history on the 4th of July at the White House. You need an A-star American champion, and there is only one A-star American champion, Jon Jones. Listen, as you can tell, I'm an immense fan of Jones. He's the best fighter I've ever seen, and he's the best fighter I ever will see. There's only two marks against Jones right now. One, his age. He'll be turning 39. And two, at UFC 309 in New York, Stipe hit him and he had him running one time. If Stipe can make you run, Tom can put you out. What's reassuring is this isn't Jon's first return from a stint away. At 285, it was his first return in a long time, and his heavyweight debut against Cyril Gane, and he chokes him out in the first round. I think Jon Jones is a genuinely special athlete. He's the Michael Jordan of this thing, and this is the perfect last dance. My prediction for the main event of UFC White House: Jon Jones will win by knockout. This is one very final last note. I'm recording this voice memo right after the finale of UFC 320, when Alex Pereira has regained his light heavyweight belt. He seems to have said in an interview that he wants the super fight against Jones at the White House. A, that's an easier fight for Jones. B, it's more marketable. Alex Pereira is more famous. I prefer the Aspinall fight. Just be aware that it could be Jones Pereira. Thanks for watching the first video on the Felix MMA channel. Subscribe if you want to see the next one, and hopefully you enjoyed. If you have fights you think will be on the White House card, leave what you think below. Cheers.